and joining us right now from the worldwide leader in sports. I'm kind of dating myself. I always said this to Schefter, too. He's like the E.F. Hutton of sports information. When people, when they talk, people listen. He's Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. How are you, Woj?
I'm well, Rich. Hope you are too.
Yeah, we are. We're knocking on wood. We're all happy and healthy and safe. And I guess I'll start with the macro question here. I read your latest piece on ESPN.com. It's remarkable. Your reporting, as always, is spot on with detail. What are the conversations right now in the NBA front offices Adam Silver having right now here on May the 1st, 2020 about this upcoming season, best you can tell?
Well, thanks, Rich. The conversations are so wide-ranging. There's so many layers to trying to play again this season, but also playing again this season in context with what next season looks like and the following season. Because if you push back the start of next season, you're essentially probably pushing back the start of the following season. And so what kind of calendar do you want to get on? Is that a one-year thing? If they don't play this year, might they still move next year's start back anyway to buy more time, to be able to get fans in arenas, to buy more time in a lot of areas? And if they play this season, how do they play? Where do they play? Do they just go right to the playoffs? Do they have some regular season left? Do they do a play-in tournament? There's so many scenarios of contingencies, and many of them, Rich, I think really are built around how many days they have to work with. And initially, they had hoped in a resumed season, they had hoped to have it wrapped up by essentially Labor Day weekend, start of football season, that first weekend in September. Mm-hmm. And as time has gone on, they're more open, or they're open to pushing it further if they need to. If that means they can get the playoffs finished, and they want to be able to crown a champion. That's important to them. And but they've also got to have a champion that comes out of a representative process, playoffs. It's got to have legitimacy to it, and so that's the fine line, because you're going to have to compromise in lots of ways. No fans, maybe shorter playoff series, maybe you don't have a best of seven, maybe you do. There's so many different, and I think what they're trying to do is, I had a quote in the story from another executive in the league who was talking about Adam's challenge and just how difficult it is to lead in a crisis by consensus. And I think there's consensus that everybody wants to play, and that's important for the league to play, even though for some individual teams who are not going to be in the playoffs. I mean, Steve Kerr said the other day,
yep,
we're operating as if we're done, and there really isn't any motivation for them to want to play a few more games or do a mini camp and then start play a few regular season games and be done. But it's important for the league that they resume, and certainly financially, there's benefits to playing for some teams. There's benefits to getting the players' money back with canceled games. And so lots of agendas, and a commissioner right now, Rich, who's got to help everybody to put them all aside and look at what is right for the league as a whole, because like every professional league, every business, every industry, this isn't a one-year challenge. This is a multi-year challenge for all of these, and specifically speaking, professional leagues and the NBA.
Yeah, because delaying the start of the next season to December is what maybe some owners in the league would like to do or have been pushing to do for a long time. So it might actually dovetail into a consensus, Woj, and the fact that, again, that's what all commissioners do, is they try to lead via consensus. And in that respect, though, even just the issue of this date of May 1st and what it would mean in terms of opening up facilities, and according to your reporting, that was difficult to even gain a consensus on that, to the point where there was a little bit of a can kick, correct, on that front?
Right. They moved the date from May 1st to May 8th, and they had told some teams over last weekend, we'll do it the 1st. And among those teams who could have opened on the 1st based on their state loosening stay-at-home regulations, the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta decided we're not ready to do that. We don't feel comfortable doing it. We want to see what happens within our state with the loosening of the restrictions. We want to see what does it do to cases in this state. Does it create a spike? Do cases of the virus go up? We want to see what it looks like in our region, our community, before we open back up. So we're going to wait a couple of weeks. Now, Atlanta's a team that's not going to be in the playoffs, and there's a different urgency for the Atlanta Hawks than, say, the Lakers, who want to win a championship, the Clippers, Philly, Milwaukee. These are all certainly teams that have a lot at stake, would like to see the season resumed, who want to make a run in the playoffs. But I will say this, Rich, in talking with teams and executives and owners, safety has been foremost. Like, of course, there's the competitive juices and people want to win. But I think that no one wants to put people in it. There's always going to be risk, and there'll be risk whenever they return. But you remember, it's not just the players. You've got coaches in their late 60s, early 70s around players. You have staff that's older and people who might be more vulnerable in the environment. And they've got to account for all of that.
And again, that's part of your article on ESPN.com. I've got Adrian Wojnarowski, the senior NBA insider for ESPN, also the host of the Woj Pod. That's got Schefter and Jeff Passan mentioned it yesterday when he was on the show. Woj right here on the Rich Eisen Show. The testing, the actual testing that would be required to get this done, and the sensitivity of what we've already heard. I mean, when Rudy Gobert was announced as COVID positive, and we found out that the entire Utah Jazz had gotten tested within 24 hours, and this was way before even the current testing scenario in our country, which is still, by many accounts, and fact-based and science accounts, woefully short in terms of the amount of Americans there are. So, and that's a sensitivity that's being played out right now with the commissioner, correct?
It is, and I reported in the story that the NBA expects that in a shortened season, in what would likely be a isolated bubble, whatever you call it, within a world where you'd have to be testing more than just players and staff, there might be hotel workers, there might be facility people, any number of people who have to be around to play, that they would need in the neighborhood of 15,000 tests to do that. And what Adam Silver has said from the beginning, he doesn't want to be in a situation where the league is trying to resume, or the league resumes, and there is still a great gap between the need in the general public and medical professions, where there's a big gap between the testing they need and the testing they have, and that here comes a professional sports league that's gobbling up all those tests. Now, there are manufacturers. I think the NBA knows they could get the tests. They could get the number they need, but they can have that guaranteed. But what they can't guarantee is that the public will have that. And I think it's an ethical question. It's a public relations question. It's all of those. How's that going to look? And so that, as much as anything, is driving the pushing of this calendar as far as they can until the testing availability to people and rapid testing, rapid response testing, rapid result testing is available. And so that's a big part of this conversation right now. So
where are the players in this conversation? What would you say if we polled the players? How many would say absolutely, I am up for quarantining, I am up for getting tested, I am up for doing whatever's necessary to get this season going in front of no fans and crowning a champion? What would you say that would be?
In my experience, my conversations, I'm not talking to 450 or 400 plus of them.
Right.
But the general sense I've gotten from talking to players is most want to play. I don't find the number any different than any other part of this. I'm trying to talk to people at all levels. I think there's different levels of optimism among the players about whether it'll happen or not, but that's not want to do it. That's, I hope we can pull it together. I think there's no question that the teams who are vying to go deep in the playoffs and who think they have a chance to win, they're more motivated, I think, but that's natural. But the others, there's a financial cost. The league will essentially take back, for every game that's missed, you're going to lose about 1% of your salary. So if all the regular season games got canceled, they didn't play anymore, and different teams have a different amount left, it's anywhere from 23 to 26% of a player's salary they're going to lose. And so that's a motivation. Now, I don't think under any scenario, let's say some teams have 16, 17 games left, there's no, we can just we can do the math. We can look at the dates and go, they're not going to be able to play that many. But if they can play 5, 6, 7 or less, it is some income back that they would be losing. So there's lots of different reasons for players to be motivated to do it. And that's part of the conversation now for the league. Do we finish any of the regular season, or do we just go right to the playoffs? And that's, in the end, I think it's going to come down to calendar and how many days they think they have to finish the season.
Well, I mean, you could ask Steve Kerr if he thinks he's going to play a regular season game the rest of this year. Again, he told the University of San Francisco when he was on a Zoom call or some sort of on Tuesday, he was on some sort of call with a group there saying that they're operating as if the season's over, that they're in the off season right now. That's what he said about, as you pointed out
and
earlier.
I think that's a little bit their mindset, but I think also he understands they may be called back to play, and I think I understand from the teams who are deep in the lottery, and especially now there's some younger teams, Rich. Now they have a balance. They have some younger, older guys. I don't think there's a great motivation to put Steph Curry back in 5 or 6 regular season games off of a shortened training camp. But for teams like, let's say, Cleveland, Atlanta, who have younger rosters, Charlotte with some of the younger guys who are out of the playoffs, they're going to treat it like a little bit of a summer league, a mini camp. Hey, we just want to get our guys back in the gym. We can run practices for 2.5, 3 weeks. We don't really care so much about the games, but we've got young players who we want to get better, and we want to bring those guys back in. And I think, that's important too.
I mean, the number of different agendas or concepts or reasons for playing or reasons for not playing that you've just mentioned, Woj, over the last several minutes. I mean, my head is spinning, so there's so much obviously placed in front of the commissioner right now. Let's just try and put a button on it because I do want to ask you a last dance question before I let you go. What do you think what's the time frame, best you can tell, and what do you think is the best plan from what you're hearing, or the most viable plan from what you're hearing that's in front of Adam Silver right now that he may pick up off his desk and say, let's try this one?
Well, I still think they're sifting through the plans. I mean, the single site is a plan. They've had teams, let's look at your practice facilities in a place where they could do some innovative television angles in a facility with no with no fans, but you could do some things with camera, try to make it, those are the options for them. I think a single place that houses everybody, it certainly makes sense. And there's places, Vegas, Walt Disney, and Florida are 2 places they've talked about. And so that'll be a big part of it.
Okay. Then the last one for you here, Woj, on The Last Dance. You had Jerry Krause on your pod before he passed away. What do you make of how Krause is coming across in this documentary so far, and what we can pretty much sense what might be coming? I know Jason Hare was on the show on Monday and said that there will be some table pounders on behalf of Krause that sees some light of day in this doc. I'm wondering what you think.
I haven't watched it yet, Rich.
You haven't?
I haven't watched it. So I will, I'm sure, at some point. But I have heard I've seen the reporting and some of the fallout of it. And I did have Jerry Krause on the podcast. I went to his house about 6 weeks maybe before he passed away. And the podcast, I think it's early June 2000. Was it? I thought it was 17.
17 is when he passed away. Yes,
it was. But I haven't watched it yet, so I don't have the context of how. So I'm afraid to jump into.
Sure.
How he's been.
Well, I mean,
I can tell it's been not well.
Yeah,
I can tell that from.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing that is coming across to me is Krause was only doing what Reinsdorf kind of hired him to do, Woj, right? I mean, so It's coming across like he insisted Phil's got to go or he couldn't get along, and that's basically how it's going right now.
Yeah, I think it's like anything else, Rich. I think two things could be true. He did an incredible job putting this team together, the parts, the pieces, how they fit from coaching staff to putting Tex Winter with Phil Jackson in a system, and then obviously all the moves around Michael Jordan that were made, and then when Jordan retired and came back, he built a second team around him. And on the back end, he was too anxious for it to end, and he was too desirous of credit and wanting, and like both can be true because these things are always complex and it's never good versus bad. But I think, listen, they all needed each other. Like none of this would have happened without all of them. And but I understand, I think in Krause, it was always hard for him. He was always going to be treated like an outsider on that group. And I think for the organization and like Phil Jackson, the players, they liked finding an enemy, a villain. And in real time then, we know that's what they did with Jerry Krause. They made him – that was their rallying cry was against Jerry Krause. And so I think Jackson and Jordan found value in that to push the team. And I think in some ways Krause was collateral damage in that. And I think I saw the Steve Kerr quote where he said all those things I just said. He deserves incredible credit, but sometimes Jerry couldn't get out of his own way, and I agree with that too.
Well, Woj, when you do get around to it, it's a fascinating watch. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I know I'll see it down the road.
Okay. Hey, Woj, thank you for the time. Really appreciate it. I know it's been a while, but congrats on everything that you have built. I mean, from your own bare hands, man. And I know what a platform it is to be on ESPN. And the listen with you, Schefter, and Passon were terrific, talking about covering.
Oh, I appreciate that. It was a lot of fun to do, and I appreciate the kind words, Rich. Right back at you.
You know how I feel, Woj. Thank you for calling in. We'll chat soon. I'm sure you look for my call. Look for my call because this is a fluid story, to say the least. Obviously.
For sure. Okay.
You got it.
Have a great weekend.
You got it. You too. That's Adrian Wojnarowski here on the Rich Eisen Show.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.